Welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories channel. Do you want to hear everything? I'll warn you now. Once I start talking, it's like the floodgates open, and there's no shutting them. The first moment, the glance that destroyed everything, still feels like a dream I can't shake. It was late in the evening, and I was walking up the driveway, a stale grocery bag in one hand, my phone in the other. The headlights from a slowly rolling ambulance glanced off the windows of my house, washing the yard in a red and white strobe. At first, I couldn't piece it together. Why the hell was an ambulance here? My heart clenched, but my mind stalled. Even the cicadas outside went quiet in my ears. I felt something collapse inside me the second I saw her, my wife, Lisa, standing in the halo of an ambulance's open doors. And next to her, leaning in as if they were sharing a secret, was Michael, the paramedic I'd never met but already loathed. He wore that official uniform, the one that usually grants immediate trust. But there was something about his body language, the way he placed a hand on her shoulder, that made my blood freeze. I stopped by the mailbox, as though some invisible wall had appeared before me. A neighbor across the street peered out from behind curtains, but no one came to ask what was happening. The air buzzed with tension, yet I couldn't move. All I could do was stare. Lisa and Michael spoke in hushed tones. I couldn't hear the exact words, but I recognized her expression. A softness in her eyes, parted lips as if she were catching her breath. She used to look that way at me, back when I was the only man in her world. The driver killed the flashing lights, and everything went dim except for the porch lamp and the flicker of streetlights behind them. Her gaze flicked over, and for a heartbeat, we locked eyes. In that single moment, I understood everything. I saw guilt, panic, and something else. An intimacy that had no place between a married woman and some paramedic outside my house. My blood pounded in my ears so loudly that I barely heard Lisa call my name. My instincts screamed to run forward, demand answers, tear that man's hand off her shoulder. But something else gripped me. A cold, quiet certainty that told me I was too late. All the nights she came home late from work, all the sudden weekend errands, all the text messages she half concealed. The final puzzle piece had just slammed into place. Michael Reeves. His face turned to me, a flicker of recognition crossing it. I wondered if she had told him about me. Her busy husband, the man who was always slogging away at some project or another, oblivious to what was happening under his nose. Yet, I didn't say a word. Couldn't. My limbs felt like dead weight. The sound in my throat died before it fully formed. I stood there, groceries digging into my palm, phone at my side, my mind screaming to do something. But all I did was watch them climb back into the ambulance. My wife followed him into that sterile vehicle as if she belonged there. Then the door closed, and the engine purred away, leaving me alone with the flickering porch lamp and a neighbor's cat mooling in the night. Inside the house, everything felt darker than usual. Every lamp I turned on cast a weak, sickly glow, hardly chasing away the shadows creeping along the walls. My own reflection in the hallway mirror looked gray, haunted. I remember setting the groceries down on the counter, not caring that something might spoil, and sliding to the floor with my back against the sink. That half-dead feeling in my chest only grew. Part of me wanted to call Lisa's phone, but the other half, a calmer, colder side, stopped me. What would I say? Accuse her? Beg for explanations? That wasn't me. I'm Daniel Miller, a man who built himself up from scratch, a man who prides himself on composure. But that night, I felt nothing short of powerless. Time passed in a blur. Maybe minutes, maybe an hour. Eventually, Lisa came home. I heard the key jangle in the lock and forced myself to stand. I expected her to rush in with a frantic story about something that happened in the neighborhood, or maybe an explanation about a medical emergency. Instead, she entered quietly, tension in her posture. She saw me, parted her lips as if to speak, then let the breath out in one trembling exhale. The lights overhead buzzed with a faint hum that seemed unbearably loud in the silence. "Daniel," she said. "Just my name. Nothing else." I studied her face. Mascara slightly smudged, hair in a messy bun as if someone had been running their hands through it. No tears in her eyes, but a hollowness there that I'd never noticed before. Something about her expression told me I wasn't going to hear any real truth. Not tonight. I waited, arms crossed, stomach twisting in knots I couldn't unravel, waiting for her to say more. But when she didn't, I only nodded, turned off the lamp, and trudged upstairs to our bedroom. I didn't even bother sleeping in our bed that night. I ended up in the guest room, listening to every creak and shift in the house, too restless to close my eyes, yet too numb to do anything else. It was the longest night of my life. The next few days turned into a relentless haze. Lisa acted as though nothing had happened, flashing a plastic smile at breakfast and asking about my schedule. I could barely look at her without replaying that moment outside the house. Her and Michael, shoulders nearly touching, a closeness I never saw her share with anyone but me. She'd come in late again on Wednesday, but this time I didn't bother asking. Why feed myself more lies? Then the phone call came from the hospital. They needed Daniel Miller, father of the child. I gripped my phone so hard it nearly cracked. Child. We had been trying for a baby for a while. At least, that was the plan on paper. But the voice on the other end mentioned test results, and I felt the floor tilt under me. I managed to schedule an appointment, telling myself that maybe it was just a mistake. Or maybe Lisa was pregnant, and I was the last to know. Still, a seed of doubt burned in my chest like acid. When we went to the clinic, I remember the squeak of the polished floor under Lisa's heels. She looked around, refusing to meet my gaze. The nurse ushered us into a cramped office where a doctor introduced himself, flipping through paperwork. "Your DNA sample. The paternal results," he began, adjusting his glasses. That was the moment I felt the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. It came back as a mismatch. I was not the father. Lisa's lips trembled. Her hand lifted to her mouth. My throat felt so tight I could barely breathe. But I didn't lash out. Didn't scream. My voice emerged flat dead. "Right," I said, standing up. "That's all I need to know." Lisa tried to reach for me. In front of the doctor, she tried to place a hand on my arm, but I pulled away. Everything from that point forward became a single-minded objective. Find the truth, gather what was mine, and make sure she felt the pain I felt, because I wasn't going to lie down like a wounded dog and cry about it. If a man can't hold on to his pride, what does he have? I took a week off work, told my boss it was a family emergency. He didn't press for details. I used that time to do what I do best. Remain calm, gather facts, and plan. I went through Lisa's phone records in the dead of night. I found texts from an unknown number that matched the days she had claimed to be working late. I found the Google Docs list she kept of gifts she wanted to buy for someone special. The worst part was seeing how meticulously she planned it, never suspecting I might dig through her digital footprints. She must have thought she'd covered her tracks. But nothing is ever truly hidden these days. Once I had enough, I confronted her. No dramatic scenes, just cold facts. Laid out every piece of evidence on our dining table. Phone screenshots, small receipts, printed logs. She stared at them, color draining from her face. Then, for the first time since this all began, tears welled in her eyes. "Daniel, please, let me explain," she whispered, voice shaking. But I shook my head, not letting her finish. I wasn't ready to hear the excuses. I wanted her to know that I knew, and that it changed everything. I didn't beg her to choose me. I didn't plead for her to stop seeing Michael. Instead, I told her the house was in my name. The accounts were in my name. The car title, my name. I had worked years to build our life, to buy these things and save for our future. Now that future was gone, but the material pieces were still under my control. I calmly explained that if she wanted a divorce, she'd walk out of here with nothing. Not a cent. Because my name was on every paper, every deed, every document. Her betrayal had hammered home one single truth. Trust is worthless if it's given to the wrong person. And if she thought I was going to grovel, she was dead wrong. For days, Lisa seemed to stagger around the house in a daze, as though she was the victim. She'd start to speak, then notice the look on my face, a cold, silent anger that couldn't be softened. She fell silent each time. I slept in the guest room. We'd pass each other in the hallway, half acknowledging one another with a curt nod. Every night, I checked her phone. Every day, I checked bank transactions. It became an obsessive vigil, fueled by the raw ache in my chest that demanded I never let her deception blindside me again. The next time she saw Michael, she didn't bother hiding it from me. One morning, I watched her stand on the porch with a small travel bag. She looked back at me through the screen door. I offered her nothing. No wave. No goodbye. The sun glared overhead, lighting the yard with a harsh brightness that made me squint. She climbed into a car that rolled up at the curb, with Michael behind the wheel. And I stood there, letting them see me watch them, letting them feel the burn of my gaze. The way she darted her eyes away told me she felt the shame. But apparently, not enough to stop. You might wonder if I shattered in that moment. Maybe yelled. Maybe shed a tear. But tears never came. It was like a dam inside me had turned to concrete. I felt hollow, an echo chamber of numb rage. And so I started planning something else. A different kind of revenge. Something quieter, that wouldn't leave me open to legal retaliation or pointless arguments. Because I'd learned from watching colleagues' divorces that confrontation can ruin a man more thoroughly than heartbreak ever could. I needed a plan that protected me and punished her. The key was giving her enough rope to hang herself. One night, I found the gifts for him list in her email, describing everything she wanted to do for Michael. Weekend getaways, new clothes, even a watch that cost more than a month's rent. I used her card, our joint credit card, in fact, to buy some of those items. Let them see the charges show up. Let them think I was clueless. Meanwhile, I consulted with a lawyer, a friend from college, to confirm I could freeze or pull back funds at any time. I made sure the house was fully secured under my name alone, that all large deposits came from my personal inheritance or my separate business account. In short, I locked down everything that truly mattered, quietly and systematically. And then I waited. I let Lisa believe she could still come home any time she wanted, rummage through our bedroom, take a change of clothes, pick up old photo albums. I let her believe that I was paralyzed. An aloof husband, pathetically clinging to illusions. She didn't realize that with each visit, I was removing another small piece of trust, another layer of illusions. I changed the locks on certain cabinets, installed cameras in strategic corners. She never noticed. Michael, as far as I knew, was still working shifts at the hospital, none the wiser about the financial noose tightening around them both. The day came when I got a call from Lisa. It was evening, and the sun had set behind thunderous clouds. Light from the street lamp flickered across the living room, throwing long shadows on the walls. Her voice sounded raw, as if she'd been crying. "Daniel, can I come by?" she asked, not even trying to mask the desperation. "I need to talk to you." I almost said no, but this was what I had been waiting for. "Sure," I replied, forcing indifference into my tone. "Come on over." It was past midnight when her car pulled up. The sky had opened up with a drizzle, reflecting the house lights on the wet asphalt. She knocked on the door, then rang the bell. I took a breath, letting myself savor the moment, then opened the door. She stood there, hair plastered to her face from the rain, trembling as though the cold had seeped into her bones. "Daniel," she faltered, eyes searching mine for any sign of warmth. "I can't do this anymore. Everything with Michael, with us. I made a mistake, a huge mistake." Her tears blended with the raindrops sliding down her cheeks. I felt something stir in my chest. Maybe pity, maybe the faint memory of love. But I smothered it. Because I remembered the stolen glances, the lies, the ambulance, the child that wasn't mine. "You want to come in?" I said flatly, stepping back to let her enter. My voice nearly cracked, but I swallowed hard and kept it steady. She nodded, stepping into the hallway, dripping onto the hardwood floor. We stood there a moment, the only illumination coming from a dull yellow lamp behind us. Our shadows stretched across the walls, flickering every time lightning flashed through the windows. She started speaking, words tumbling out about how Michael wasn't the man she thought he was, how he avoided financial responsibilities, how he talked big about moving away and starting fresh, but never actually followed through. She realized she was losing everything she'd built, and it scared her. I just want a second chance," she said at last, voice barely above a whisper. "I know I don't deserve it. But I don't know how to live without you." I let the silence envelop us, listening to the rain outside, the soft rumble of distant thunder. My chest felt tight, because despite the hatred and betrayal burning inside me, part of me remembered the life we'd shared, the plans, the laughter. But that life was gone, and I had no intention of resurrecting it. "You think you can just walk back in here, talk about mistakes, and expect me to forget everything?" I asked, voice low. Lisa shook her head, stepping closer, tears brimming again. She reached out, fingers grazing my arm. I didn't pull away this time. I wanted her to feel the slightest sliver of hope. That was the real cruelty of my plan, letting her believe there was a chance. "Daniel, please," she whispered. "Let me make it up to you, if that's even possible. I'll do anything." Her breath caught, and she looked up at me with a gaze so desperate it was almost terrifying. It was the first time I ever saw her completely stripped of her confidence, her dignity even. And maybe that was what I needed to witness, the collapse of her illusions. I nodded slowly, as if considering it. I needed her vulnerable enough to trust me once more, to believe in the possibility of reconciliation. Only then would the final blow truly land. "Okay," I said, stepping back. "But don't expect it to be easy." Over the next few days, I let her stay in the guest room. She tiptoed around me, cleaning dishes, cooking meals, trying to prove her worth. My phone chimed a few times, messages from Michael to Lisa, no doubt, though she rarely answered them now. I felt no pity. I'd watch her from the corner of my eye, remembering that ambulance scene in a loop, wondering how she could look so broken now, when before she looked so free, so certain of herself in his presence. The question gnawed at me, but I never asked it out loud. One evening, not long after her return, she approached me in the dimly lit living room. A single lamp cast shadows across her face, half in light, half in darkness. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I was sprawled on the couch, staring at nothing. I gestured for her to sit. She perched on the edge of the recliner nearby, wringing her hands in her lap. I want you to know I'm sorry. For everything. I can't defend what I did." Her voice quivered, eyes dropping to the floor. "He made me feel alive in a way that I thought I needed. But it was all a lie. I see that now. I lost my mind, and lost you too." My chest tightened, a strange mixture of anger and something like sympathy swirling inside me. "How did you think this would end?" I asked, my tone detached. "Did you really believe we'd keep living under one roof while you had a child with someone else?" At the mention of the child, her face crumpled. She looked so small, so helpless in that moment. "I didn't know what to do," she whispered. "When I realized I was pregnant, I thought I'd figure it out. And then," she paused, inhaling shakily, "then the baby. I lost it early on. I never even told him. Or you." Everything felt impossible. I stared at her, a coldness spreading through my veins. So she'd lost the baby. Whether it was true or not, the betrayal remained the same. The final blow of the DNA test was overshadowed by the fact that there was no child now. Maybe that should have made me feel relief, but it only deepened the ache. "And Michael?" I pressed. She shrugged, tears sliding down her cheeks. He wanted me, or at least he said he did. But then, after a few weeks, he pulled back. I realized he had his own life, his own issues. He didn't want to be the father of anyone's child. I guess it was just an affair to him. We sat in silence after that. The overhead light buzzed, and in the distance, a car alarm blared and stopped. I watched her trembling fingers, recalling the day we exchanged wedding rings, how steady her hands had been then. I wanted to say, "You deserve this," but the words turned to acid in my mouth. Instead, I stood leaving her alone in the living room, footsteps echoing as I climbed the stairs. Some part of me wanted her to know the well of anger I carried, but another part was beyond words, beyond everything. In the following days, I set my final plan in motion. I pretended to let her back in, accepted her apologies in a monotone voice, let her sleep in the master bedroom once or twice, even let her cry in my arms. I remained distant, but not cruel. She probably thought I was warming up to the idea of repairing our marriage. In truth, I was waiting for the perfect moment to reveal that none of the illusions she clung to were real. The house, the car, my name on every document. The bank accounts locked down. The intangible sense of security she wanted. That was gone the moment she stepped out with Michael Reeves. Finally, that night arrived. It was raining again, strangely fitting, with a crack of thunder in the distance. We were in the living room, the lights low, a single lamp on. She wore the nightgown I had once found beautiful, now just a relic of happier times. She reached for my hand. "Daniel," she began, voice trembling. "I've been thinking about us, about how we can move forward. I know we can't go back, but..." I cut her off. "You want to move forward." I let out a short laugh, my voice breaking for a split second before turning cold again. "You think it's that easy?" She blinked, confusion clouding her features. You said you'd consider giving me a chance." I nodded. "I did. And I have." A pause. I glanced at the windows, where the rain traced patterns on the glass. "But if you think for 1 second that you can cheat on me, lie about everything, let me find out the child you carried wasn't mine, and then come back here like it's just a matter of forgiveness. No, you don't get to do that." My voice was steady, but I felt the intensity rise in my chest. "I've taken the house, the car, the accounts, everything. Legally, it's all mine." Her eyes widened in disbelief. She looked like she'd been punched in the gut. "What? Daniel, please, I can't. You can't leave me with nothing." Tears welled in her eyes again, desperation clawing at her voice. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a whisper. "I already did. You left yourself with nothing the moment you betrayed me." A wave of tension rippled through me, but I forced my posture to remain calm. "If you file for divorce, you'll get the bare minimum. Maybe not even that, considering how you defrauded me. I have the documents, the texts, the bank statements. Do you understand?" She shook her head in a daze, standing up as if to leave but not knowing where to go. But I thought that you could come back and rebuild trust." I spat the words out, biting back the shout that threatened to break loose. "There's no trust left. And that's what you needed the most, wasn't it? My trust, my forgiveness, my acceptance. Well, you don't have it." She opened her mouth to protest, tears streaming down her cheeks, but nothing came out. Her gaze darted around the room, as if searching for something to hold on to, some shred of hope. I just watched her, arms crossed, pressing my lips into a thin line. In that moment, everything, the heartbreak, the anger, the quiet planning, culminated in a final, irreversible realization. I was done. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the front yard in a stark white glare before plunging it back into darkness. She was sobbing now, quietly, shoulders shaking. "Daniel, I love you," she managed, choking on the words. I laughed, a hollow, joyless sound. "No, you love what I gave you. And you destroyed that." I didn't move to console her, didn't so much as reach for her hand. The realization hit her like a punch to the chest, and she doubled over, tears splattering on the floor. Maybe in some other life, I would have felt a pang of sympathy, or thrown my arms around her. But that part of me was gone. The part that loved her unconditionally had died the night I saw her with Michael Reeves outside that ambulance. For a moment, I recalled Michael's face. Dark eyes, strong build, the gentle way he laid a hand on her shoulder. He tasted what was mine, took her into that sterile, cold realm of hospital halls and hidden texts, while I remained blindly loyal at home. I felt anger surge again, but forced it down. This moment was about Lisa realizing she had lost everything, not about me raging at Michael. She stumbled toward the door, reaching for the handle. The storm outside rumbled, and a flash of lightning cast a fleeting brightness across her figure. Her expression was drenched in misery and panic. "Where am I supposed to go?" she whispered, voice cracking. "I have nowhere else. I can't go to him. It's over between us. He doesn't want me now. And I." She swallowed hard, trembling like a wounded animal. "I don't want him either. I just thought." "You thought wrong," I said, stepping closer. I held her gaze, letting her see just how dead my expression was, how hollow my tone had become. A man might not cry, but the pain inside me was molten. "Get out, Lisa. You made your choice. Now live with it." She flinched as if I'd struck her. Slowly, with shaky fingers, she reached for the door, her knuckles white on the knob. She glanced over her shoulder, tears still streaming down her face. But I stayed silent. When she opened the door, the wind splashed rain against her legs. She hesitated, and for half a second I wondered if she would beg, or try one last time to plead her case. But I'd given her no sign of mercy, so she stepped out into the storm. The door clicked shut behind her. Water dripped from the eaves, and I watched her silhouette pass across the porch, out into the dark. The next flash of lightning illuminated her figure struggling with a small suitcase, fumbling toward her car. My breath felt heavy in my chest, a swirl of bitterness and triumph tangling in my gut. I had my revenge. She had nothing. In the silence that followed, I exhaled, leaning against the wall. My mind replayed every moment, from the day I saw her outside the ambulance until this final confrontation. Deep inside, I'd expected some sense of relief, maybe even satisfaction. But all I felt was a cold emptiness. The living room lamp flickered, threatening to go out, and the thunder rolled on overhead. I closed my eyes, listening to the rain hammer the roof. My jaw clenched. There was no turning back from what I'd done. I wasn't sure I wanted to. A man shouldn't cry, at least that's what I told myself. But the pain inside me roiled like a restless tide. With Lisa gone, the last glimmer of what we were was gone too. Maybe that was the only way forward. I climbed the stairs to the master bedroom, not bothering to turn on lights. Faint flashes of lightning lit up the hallway, each burst revealing the walls lined with photos of our life together. Vacations, holidays, anniversaries. I paused at one photo. The two of us on our wedding day, smiles bright enough to banish any shadow. I couldn't quite recognize that man in the tuxedo anymore. It felt like a lifetime ago. My chest tightened, but no tears came. The storm raged outside, but I was the storm inside these walls. In the coming days, I expected a barrage of calls, text messages, maybe from Lisa or Michael. But nothing. The silence itself was eerie. I went back to work, answering polite questions from coworkers with a curt nod. Eventually, Lisa tried to call me twice. I let it ring, listened to the voicemail, where she whimpered something about needing a place to stay. Her voice was shaky, no trace of the self-assured tone she once wielded. I deleted it. One night, a couple of weeks later, there was a tentative knock on my door. I checked the camera feed I'd installed. It was Michael Reeves, standing in the faint glow of the porch light. My pulse kicked up, heat flaring behind my eyes. The man who had touched my wife, fathered a child that never came to be. I hesitated, then opened the door a crack. His eyes, a deep shade of brown, met mine with a look that was a mixture of shame and something else. Remorse, maybe. "Hey," he said quietly. "Could we talk?" I didn't want him in my house, but a part of me craved closure, if only to confirm that I wasn't crazy, that Lisa had truly chosen him over me. So I let him in. He didn't step far, just a foot over the threshold. He held his cap in his hands, twisting it nervously. "I shouldn't have come," he began, glancing around. "But I wanted to say I'm sorry. I never wanted any of this to happen." A hollow laugh escaped my lips. "You never wanted to sleep with another man's wife." His expression tightened. "I know how it sounds. Trust me, man, I didn't go looking for trouble. Lisa made it seem like your marriage was already over, that you two were just going through the motions. And at first, it was just flirting. I didn't think it'd become—" He paused, swallowing. "I've paid my price, if that matters." "Paid your price?" He looked at me, eyes weary. "My reputation took a hit at the hospital. Word got out, and management's not happy. And personally, I don't sleep too good these days." I studied him. A tall, broad man, stubble on his chin, those shoulders slumped in guilt. For a moment, I felt an odd sense of pity for him. He had no idea just how deep the betrayal cut me, or how thoroughly Lisa's illusions had collapsed. "And what do you expect from me? An apology for pushing her away, so she ended up in your arms?" He shook his head. "No, I'm not here for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I didn't plan on messing up your life. If anything, I feel sick about it." He let out a breath. "Lisa's lost. She came to me the other day, but I told her we're done. It was never going to work." I nodded. Silence stretched out, broken only by the hum of the AC. I realized that despite everything, I didn't hate him as much as I hated what my wife did. He was just the catalyst, the second half of a betrayal that only Lisa had the power to commit. Maybe some men would have punched him, thrown him out, but I was too tired. My revenge was already complete. No need for more. "Well," I said, stepping aside, "there's nothing more to say." He gave a slow nod, stepping back onto the porch. He paused, looking like he wanted to add something, but settled for, "I'm sorry." Then he left. I closed the door and locked it, leaning against the wood, exhaling the tension in my chest. That was the final page of the chapter, I realized. I was free. Empty, but free. Time passed in a blur. My lawyer worked out the legal details behind the scenes. Lisa's meager demands in the divorce settlement were swiftly denied. I offered her a small courtesy payment, enough to get by for a few months, though I didn't legally have to. It wasn't generosity so much as a way to wash my hands of the entire mess, like paying a final fee before closing an account. She never showed up in person to sign the documents. Instead, we handled everything through lawyers and digital signatures. I'm not proud to admit that I looked her up on social media every so often. She posted nothing. No pictures, no updates. Just radio silence. Mutual friends whispered that she'd moved back to Florida to stay with a cousin. Maybe she was trying to pick up the pieces of her life, or maybe she was drifting aimlessly. I didn't ask for details. The nights were quieter without her. The bed felt bigger. The house was emptier, but it was undeniably mine. The final hearing date came and went. My lawyer confirmed it was done. My marriage was dissolved. I stared at the digital notification for a long time, the bright text proclaiming my new status. Divorced. A swirl of emotion thundered through me. Relief, sadness, anger, liberation. Mostly relief. My phone vibrated with a message from my lawyer. "Congratulations, it's all settled." I snorted at the word. Congratulations. Right. That evening, I sat on the back porch with a bourbon in hand, watching the sun dip below the rooftops. The Texas sky glowed orange and pink, a warm breeze rustling the trees. My mind drifted. I thought about how the entire world had felt unstoppable once. My stable job, my comfortable marriage. Then, in a matter of weeks, everything unraveled. But I also realized that I'd come out of it with my self-respect intact. Lisa's betrayal left scars, sure, but it hadn't broken me. I had fought back in my own way, and she was gone. A sudden gust of wind brushed across my face, and I took a slow sip of bourbon. The burn slid down my throat, reminding me I was alive. For the first time since this ordeal began, I breathed deep, feeling the tension in my shoulders unravel. I let myself linger there, bathed in the fading sunlight, acknowledging the bruises on my heart, but refusing to let them define my future. Maybe tomorrow I'd start fresh, figure out a new path, possibly even consider a dog, something that might greet me at the door without deception or demands. I closed my eyes, thinking of the final question everyone seems to ask. Do you want to hear everything? Yes, I told my story. And this is all there is. Betrayal, pain, and the revenge that gave me closure. Some might say it's a bitter victory, but it's mine. And sometimes that has to be enough. I opened my eyes, gazing at the sun as it vanished behind the horizon. A man shouldn't cry. That's what I've always believed. I didn't, but the ache was there, lodged deep, throbbing quietly, reminding me that healing would be slow. Still, as I drained the last of my bourbon and stood, feeling the warmth settle in my chest, I knew the worst was over. I stepped back into my house, my home, and closed the door behind me, certain that I was finally, truly alone.